evening, everyone. I'll call this Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 6 p.m. here in Council Chambers. I do not believe we have any remote electronic attendance, correct? So we move to board appointments. First is Mayor's appointment of Eric Van Spybrook to the Special Service Area Number 6 Board for a full 3-year term, expiring September 30th, 2026. Mayor's reappointment of Andrew Siebertson to the Moline Center Main Street Commission for a full 3-year term expiring September 30th, 2026. Mayor's reappointment of Jeff Dismer to the Public Art Commission for a full 2-year term expiring September 30th, 2025. Mayor's reappointment of Amanda Augsburger to the Public Art Commission for a full 2-year term expiring September 30th, 2025. And Mayor's reappointment of Lucy Van Heck to the Public Art Commission for a full 2-year term expiring September 30th, 2025. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to our presentation, Visit Quad Cities Annual Report with Mr. Harrell. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you tonight. I'm Dave Harrell, President and CEO of Visit Quad Cities, and first and foremost, I do want to just recognize that the Mayor, Mayor Ray Putty, serves on our Board of Directors, and we're grateful for her leadership and her contribution to all of the things that we're trying to do to effectuate change and move the destination and certainly tourism forward in a 21st century economy. I've got a few slides that I'm going to roll through. Bob said spend a few minutes and then answer any questions that you might have. I do want to say on behalf of our Board of Directors and our professional team, thank you for the investment that Moline provides Visit Quad Cities. We are a nonprofit organization. We are a shared and common community value, and we're proud of the relationship that we have with Moline. So on behalf of our team, thank you very much. You'll see on the screen our mission and vision and brand promise. And why I wanted to show you this specifically, I think in terms of the conversations that you're having right now about the riverfront, how we are perceiving our riverfront as an opportunity moving forward, it's a chance to really think through how are we getting some international awareness and attention around the Quad Cities regional destination. And we see this as a huge opportunity. So we're excited about the journey that you're getting ready to embark on, and however we can value add for you and the city. Just know that we stand ready to do that. But I wanted to share that with you. This is what drives us. We do have a belonging statement, certainly from an inclusivity perspective, and how we want to welcome visitors into our region is critically important to our business. So just know that's an initiative that is very, very important for our organization. What's important to note for our public sector investors and partners, we are an accredited organization. We take that very seriously. We are accredited by Destinations International, and there's over 800 destinations around the globe that we compete with every day. And there's only 200 destinations that have this distinction. It is very challenging to get that. And we have that in the Quad Cities, which means we operate at a very high level of standard in terms of transparency, duty of care, duty of loyalty, and stewardship to our community. So that seal means a great deal to us. When you talk about Visit Quad Cities, our current governance structure, you're actually talking about 3 entities. So we are the Convention Visitors Bureau, which DBAs is Visit Quad Cities. We have a sports commission, which is now Sports QC, powered by Visit Quad Cities, which is the entity that goes out and recruits and hosts sporting events into the region. Events like the Missouri Valley Women's Basketball Tournament that happens at Vibrant Arena. And then Friends of the Quad Cities, which is a C3 entity that we've just re-DBA'd as Quad Cities Destination Inc., which is anything in and around how we want to try to drive our destination forward as a C3 organization. So long range, I think we've got a really good foundation for doing the things that we want to do to scale tourism moving forward. We are a bi-state regional destination, but I think it's important to note in Illinois, Illinois is a unique anomaly around the country in that 17% of our operating budget comes from the state of Illinois. through a program that has literally been around since the mid-'80s called the LTCB investment. And that is an investment in destination organizations, and there's 37 around the state of Illinois. So we have a contractual arrangement with the state of Illinois. We work very closely with DCO and the governor's office on all things related to destination development, destination marketing, and tourism. Very different than how we operate in Iowa. There are grant programs, there are opportunities that exist, but Illinois is one of the few states that has this program, and so it is vitally important to our organizational vitality in terms of the relationship that we have in Springfield with our elected leaders, as well as the governor's office. So I wanted to share that with you. Our visitor economy is not just about how Visit Quad Cities is driving overnight demand for hotel stays. I think a lot of times maybe that's how we're perceived, but we touch a lot of different industries. And if you look in 2021, and we're getting ready to announce numbers in 2022, hopefully by October 26th, and I'll touch on that in a minute, our visitor economy is about $1.14 billion. So pretty significant, the amount of taxes that are generated at the local level, the state level, and this is regional, but then jobs. Tourism creates and sustains jobs, and every day the value that we're bringing as your partner is hopefully doing things that are making people go to work and sustaining their employment. I wanted to show this grid because I think it's important to note. I'm going to touch on 2022. If you look at 2019, total visitor spending about $1.2 billion. Obviously, a significant drop due to the pandemic. I think that impacted every budget, not only your budget, our budget, the economy. In 2021, we saw a little bit of rebound to that 1.14 billion. What I will tell you is this: we have recently gotten numbers from the state of Illinois, and we'll get Iowa's very soon in terms of how they capture revenue. In Rock Island County, which is technically our service area within the framework of our contract with DCO, every category in terms of visitor spending, local taxes generated, and state taxes generated are up by a minimum threshold of 19%. So we're proud of that. I think that's a great metric. And late October, we're going to announce what those numbers are for the region. And then Daniel Thomas, who's the Illinois Office of Tourism Director, will be in our community November 7th, and we'll make sure that you all get invited to that engagement. So we're starting to see the market rebound, which I think is a positive. Our long-range targets, again, are getting north of this $1.2 billion in annual visitor expenditures, getting our hotel occupancy rates at about 60% currently within our system, with 6,500 hotel rooms and supply and 73 properties region-wide. We're about 54%. Collectively, do about $10 million in hotel motel taxes. In FY23, it was about 7.7 in change. So we want to move that north. And then hopefully, in turn, that will drive our operating budget north of $3 million. I'm not going to get into our SWOT analysis, but what I brought for Bob was some examples of our business plans. And actually, hopefully, everybody has seen that from us. So we are very open. I think we've shared that with all of you electronically. If you ever have a question, we're happy to answer that. So you kind of get a feel for where we are strategically. We've got a tourism master plan. We've got priorities and goals within that plan that we're really touching every day, everything from promotion to programming to our governance to development to stewardship, and ultimately how are we putting that plan, getting it off the shelf, and doing the things that we need to do from an implementation perspective. These are the goals and objectives of that long-range plan. There are 8. We have a tourism master plan implementation leadership team. Our board connects with this plan of work. That plan lives and breathes on our website, and I would encourage you to connect with it, particularly as you think about things in the downtown area. We had an announcement earlier today about the trail system and outdoor and what that looks like, and then chiefly with your riverfront and what we can do to connect with you to be a good partner as you do the things that you want to do to drive that forward. I'm not going to get into all of our priorities, but I'll touch on 2. One, we have never had an interlocal agreement in our 32-year history as an organization. And so that is something that our city administrators, our board is keenly aware of, to make sure that we've got the stability and we've got the foundation that we need to be protected as an organization to hopefully create more value in terms of driving our economy. So that is our number one priority for FY24. And then also we're in the process of developing what we're calling a regional destination enterprise, which will really reform our governance structure to make sure that we are tourism ready and that we are positioned to drive economic development forward within the lane that we travel in. This is a snapshot on our budget. So operating revenue about 2.3 million, chiefly publicly funded as an organization. There's a variety of categories that are part of this operating budget, but our operating revenue is about 2.3 million. Again, municipal and county funding that we get from Scott County as well as Rock Island County make up that capture, and it ebbs and flows based on the things that we're hosting and the things that we're doing every year. Our expense budget is about $2.5 million. We run a pretty lean and mean organization, a professional staff of 11, and we're doing things that hopefully are creating opportunities for Quad citizens to thrive. So we are in the mode that we're still deficit spending as an organization. That was something that our board and our team decided we were going to do because we felt compelled to make sure that our regional economy was still flowing through COVID. So as we kind of move out of that, we're hopeful to get back to a point where a break even, and then hopefully in excess of that. To give you a little stack rank or a comparison of kind of where we fall, we are probably in the bottom 25% of destination marketing organizations at the national level from a budget perspective. And good, bad, right, or wrong, we are just woefully funded as it relates to the competitors that we compete with every day to drive tourism. Now, from a funding perspective, we have a lot of partners and a lot of different folks that we rely on. From our local municipalities, I mentioned Illinois. We are a partnership-driven organization. We've got 250 private partners. We have an investor program, event revenue. We get grants that we secure to do the things that we're trying to operate every day. This will give you a feel for FY end 23 on our local public sector investments. And so could these be a little off by maybe $1 or $2, maybe, but you'll get a feel for what this looks like. So last year, a little over $1.2 million. Now, to put that into perspective in terms of what we are driving in direct group business, these are events and things that we're bringing into the community. On average, we are generating over $3 million in group business. Those are the events, meetings, conventions, conferences, sporting events that we're bringing every day. So that $1.2 million that we're capturing from all of the municipalities and the counties and some of our smaller and tertiary communities, we feel like that is a great ROI in terms of what we're driving. But not only that, we have a responsibility to that 1.14, 1.2 hopeful billion visitor economy. So the transient occupancy tax that we collect, if you take all of the jurisdictions and put that into one bucket, is 16%. Now the national average for DMOs is 50%. And so our board has been discussing that for a couple years. We're working through those meaningful conversations with our public sector leadership. But it's important to note as it relates to the people that we're competing with every day to try to drive more business and more opportunities here. This is just the factual number that we're currently at. So that 16% is collect. Do we want to move that up? Yes, but we also know that that's not going to necessarily go from 16% to 75%. We know that's not realistic based on priorities, certain things that you've been doing, but hopefully in a gradual way, we can get back to a point where we can be in a competitive place, because in our space, it is very competitive. In everything that we do, whether it's trying to recruit events and you need bid fees to be able to do that, to get that content and acquire those events, or on the sales and marketing side, just trying to promote our destination, do the things that we need to do to try to drive incremental awareness and value. This is our river pilot. This is what drives our business plan and our strategic operating guide. Our pillars are really driven by tourism development, destination marketing, and visitor experience. And we've got these cornerstones that you'll see and drivers within our plan. So I hope what I'm imparting to you is we are a very planned and driven organization in terms of what our value prop is. We know where we're going long range. We're just trying to figure out the best ways to resource the organization to do the things that we need to do. One last thing I want to leave you on with is this. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. We are much more of a technology company than we ever have been before. We know who is in the Quad Cities literally every day. We do that through mobile phone technology. So we can literally look at mobile devices as long as people are 16 and older, and we can tell you based on the points of interest that we have, and we now have up to 350 in the Quad Cities, downtowns, cities, destination assets, anything that you can shake a stick at. We know who those people are, what those demographics are, and we can actually market with intentionality and advertise to them specifically. So it's been great research for us. So we're making those data-based, data-driven decisions to do the things that we've been charged to do. This is a quick snapshot of some numbers, and we'll share this more October 26th at our annual event. But in FY23 from July 1 to June 30 of 2023, you get a feel for like the unique visitors. These are first-time visitors into the Quad Cities. The average length of stay, the number of visits, visitor days spent. But you'll see these top markets. These are what we call source or origin markets. Chicago being number one, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, et cetera. So we have relationships and certainly marketing platforms within each one of these communities. Do we want to expand that? Of course we do, but this is kind of our bread and butter. So we can track all of this information, which is like really good data, and however we can continue to share that with the city of Moline and Renew Moline, et cetera. We're happy to do that. So I'll end with this. As we holistically look at tourism, this is really important to note for elected leaders like yourself. We approach it very different. It's not just a transactional thing. When we think about people visiting the Quad Cities, we're coming at it from the approach of hopefully they're going to be residents. And so the only way to get people to have at least a sense of our community, to consider either a job or maybe relocating here or starting a business, we got to get them to visit here first. So we look at this in a way that hopefully is about living and belonging, working, investing, and ultimately experiencing the Quad Cities and doing that in a meaningful way. So with that, I know Bob said, Dave, you got about 5 to 8 minutes. I'm happy to land the plane there. I do want to say this. We are very grateful for Moline's investment. We are proud to operate our business in downtown Moline. That's important to us. We love being in the location that we are, and we've got a long-term lease, and are just grateful for the investment and the contribution that you make in our organization. So with that, I'll say thank you, and happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Anyone have questions at this point? It was very thorough, Dave.
I tried, Mayor, to roll
Thank
through.
you. They'll take it under consideration as we make our budgeting decisions.
That's all we ask. But we're grateful. If anyone ever has a question for us, you know where to find us. We're grateful for the partnership it means a lot to us. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, we'll move to public comment now. Is there any public comment this evening?
Jasmine Lee.
Oh, I just signed it on page 22.
Oh, yeah, it's just if you want to say anything in a 3-minute time frame. All right. All right. Anyone else?
Mr. Moyer, Sam Moyer.
Yes, Mr. Moyer. Welcome back. Welcome home.
That's right. All right, I get 3 minutes.
Yeah. It's already called 9 o'clock. 1.5. You never saw that from your vantage point, but
I didn't know. I didn't have any idea it was there. All right, so I'm Sam Moyer. I'm a Moline resident. Basically, I'm just here to speak in favor of 16.3 buildings and other construction rental housing inspection program. I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm very proud Moline resident, and would encourage you to support this. If I can knock that off. So I also serve, beyond everything else I've done, I also serve as the chair of something called the Preservation Committee for the Moline Housing Council, and something that we deal with all the time are the poor condition of housing, especially rental housing, and this all comes down to making sure that people that have to live in this rental housing, that they have clean, safe places to live. And I think that this is a wonderful step in the right direction for that. As the director of an organization, a nonprofit organization that does this, we have a couple hundred units. I think the fee is fine. I have no problem with that. I think it moves us in the right direction. And I just really appreciate that this council is considering this tonight, and I hope you'll approve it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other public comment? All right, then we move to questions on the agenda. Just for your notes, we're going to move item 7.2 to our next meeting. There's a few more details to work out between our police department and the folks that are hosting that traffic concerns. So that will come back. So we move to our council agenda items then. 7.1, resolution approving a new special event application for Mercado and Fifth's Dia de los Muertos Parade after party event scheduled for Saturday, October 28th, and closing certain streets, more particularly described herein to vehicular traffic. Mr. Vitas.
Well, we're glad to announce that Mercado is having the second annual Dia de los Muertos Parade. And in the after party, of course, the reason for this item is that this goes one day beyond what the original license agreement we had with them. So in order to continue to close the same area that has traditionally been closed for the after party, we have to amend that. So we're recommending approval.
Motion to approve?
Second. Oof. First by Alderperson Schmidt, second by Macias. We'll go around the room. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. So we move to 7.3, an ordinance amending Chapter 34, Water and Sewers, Section 34-4203, detention system criteria of the Moline Code of Ordinances by enacting one new subsection C3. Mr. Vitas or Mr. Lodi?
Mr. Lodi can take this.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor and Council. This item is an addition to Chapter 34 in the Stormwater Code that gives staff a little bit more, another tool in the toolbox to help developers develop their property. Currently, the code requires redevelopments and developments to install detention. As I told you last week, the purpose of the storm utility is to control rather than to convey, so we want to slow the water down. So we already have a tool which allows developers to pay a fee in lieu of installing the detention. This change allows us to grant a waiver if the developer, upon their own accord, owns property or has control of property off-site and builds the necessary detention off-site, subject to our approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second. All right, motion by Schmidt, second by Finch. Discussion? Thank you for the foresight on making it easier for developers. Hearing nothing further, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We move to 7.4. A resolution granting a variance to Chapter 28 Streets and Sidewalks of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 28-3200A, and Chapter 35 Zoning and Land Development of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 35-4218, to permanently waive the construction of sidewalk along 39th Street for the subject property located at 3715 39th Street, Moline, and accept payment in lieu of construction for the amount of $4,180 to be deposited into the Sidewalk Improvement Fund.
Motion to approve.
Wait, discussion for,
Motion.
Presentation. No,
Oh,
we're not
presentation.
switching. It's
Okay.
you or Chris Mathias.
It could be me, Chris Mathias, or it could be David Dreyer.
I'm going with David.
David probably.
All right, David.
He'd be my choice, considering.
Door number 3. This is a residential site on 39th Street. It's on a very steep location in a self-contained neighborhood that has no sidewalks today. We calculated the typical cost to build sidewalk at $11 a square foot. And Mr. Mosley is looking for a waiver. We don't believe that a sidewalk is feasible at this location. And so we're not opposed to a waiver. The issue is there a cost associated with it? Mr. Mosley has the ability to apparently fund sidewalk construction through his company for less than the city can do it. We, again, have to pay prevailing wages, so we're at the $4,100 number there approximately. So the question is, how does the council wish to handle that, the discrepancy in what we can build it for, what he believes he can build it for, and the fact that it's a location that is very steep and that would be problematic in our regards here for sidewalk, given that there's none existing in the neighborhood. So the ordinance doesn't give us much latitude, so we proceeded with the waiver of cost of $41.80. I don't know, Chris, do you have anything to add here or not?
Sure. So we discussed this in the department head meeting today. You know, you've got 2 sidewalk variance requests on for tonight. So there's really 2 options. You know, staff had a lot of conversations with the applicants. Staff were also here when a previous city council passed this policy. So in our discussions in our department head today, we really thought option 1 is a great option for both of these, which is to delay this sidewalk installation until sidewalks are installed on either side of this development. So in terms of this one on 39th Street, yes, it's pretty much a built-out subdivision, but that's another reason, in our opinion, to waive that until we have sidewalks on either side. So in option 1 in that policy does give you the option to delay it until a specific time, you know, a temporary delay, effectively. So, so that was what, you know, at least in department head we were talking about this morning.
So the motion as written is what, though? You have recommended what is written? Or are you needing an amendment?
My recommendation, based on the conversations today, my staff recommendation would be to recommend option 1, which is a temporary delay until the sidewalk is installed on either side of this property, which is what we talked about at the meeting this morning.
Okay, but what I'm trying to clarify, and now I'm looking at the actual council bill, is it written the way you're just recommending it? It is not. That's
No.
what I
No,
thought.
it's not.
So we need to amend this. Could you please give us the language that you would be seeking?
Yes, so the staff recommendation would be to approve the variance option number 1, which is a temporary delay to install the sidewalk. And that would be delayed until there's sidewalk installed on either side of the property, either the adjacent properties.
I make a motion to,
I think we have to put it on the floor first, right, and then amend it?
yeah. I
Mr.
guess.
Silverman?
Okay, move to approve.
Yes.
Okay, move to approve by Mr. O'Brien. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second by Mr. Schmidt? Discussion. Yes.
Oh, this development isn't new though, is it?
No, this is not new.
It's
This is a
been there a while.
1970s, 1980s
Yeah.
development, right?
So when would there be sidewalks put on either side then?
It's also one of the questions of why you'd have the sidewalk installed too, I guess, right now, because it's not a neighborhood that's even connected to another neighborhood where you'd have pedestrians crossing through. But yeah, that's,
So indefinitely, right?
And it
it would be
says,
indefinite.
it's definitely an opportunity, correct me if I'm wrong, to relook at this ordinance to see what the efficacy is and what the fairness of it, et cetera, all those things.
And staff would be happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Schmidt?
That kind of answered my question. I think I'm good.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Can I ask a question, though? Because my concern is if I heard two things. So this would be a temporary suspension of the requirement to install a sidewalk in a subdivision that has no sidewalks. Now, the materials you have in your packet, of course, talk about a permanent waiver. So if it's going to be temporary, so is there a thought that the sidewalk would eventually be built throughout this subdivision?
I think, David, the most likely scenario is that the road gets rebuilt probably, and that's when you're going to get sidewalks in this subdivision.
Okay.
So the
Yes.
amendment language he gave
Yeah.
us is okay.
Yeah.
Because
Okay,
I will reread what she has down, but I will read for the council's benefit how they might choose to amend this to meet what you are asking for. Approve the variance option 1, temporary delay until sidewalk is installed on both sides.
Okay.
On either side where we have a sidewalk to connect to.
Are we clear?
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to amend as written.
I mean, as spoken?
As spoken.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, that's Mr. Timian and Ms. Castro. Mr. Timian.
On this, I'm not a big fan of waiving the sidewalk. This is a bigger discussion, obviously, but this is a 14% grade that connects to a road without a sidewalk.
Yeah.
That connects to a road without a sidewalk. So this is not really, I think, what they had in mind when this was made.
Thank you. Anything further? Hearing nothing, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that amendment passes. Now we'll vote on it as amended, correct?
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion on the item in general? Hearing none, all in favor of the item as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Would you like to stay there for
Yes.
7.5? Well, let me read, excuse me, I have to just back up here 1 second. Back up twice. All right, 7.5, a resolution granting a variance to Chapter 28, Streets and Sidewalks of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 28-3200A, and Chapter 35, Zoning and Land Development of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 35-4218, to permanently waive the construction of sidewalk along the subject property located at 2500 53rd Street, Moline, and accept payment in lieu of construction of sidewalk for the amount of $14,700. Mr. Mathias.
Yes, so obviously, like I said, we were talking about this in the department head meeting today, both of these items together, and I think, this is another situation here where you've got, you've got a small business owner that's purchased a lot and has got her development going, but there are no sidewalks here to connect to. And so, in the interest of, and by the way, this is another ordinance that we're going to have to change some of the language. It does say permanent in there if you're reading the council bill right now. So as far as the staff recommendation goes on this, we would recommend the same for this, pursuing option 1, which would allow her to start her business there. When development happens on either side, this isn't our collector street. So when development happens on either side, certainly there should be a sidewalk here, and that would be our staff recommendation would be to approve option 1 and delay the sidewalk until we have development on either side of this parcel.
So you're recommending the same language? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, can we get a motion on the floor?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Timian, second by Ms. Finch. Discussion. Appreciate your explanations. We do need an amendment. Yes, Mr. Timian.
I think, I understand what we're doing here. This is another unique property. The adjacent properties will likely not be redeveloped for a substantial amount of time. I think one is a church, the other is the car wash, or, no, is that the wrong street?
No, there's like a strip mall nearby.
Okay, but regardless, and there are no adjacent sidewalks. So this is kind of an indefinite, very long-term suspension. Is that kind of the intention here?
It could end up, I would say it could end up being fairly long-term. The council has their prerogative, I think, where they could put, if you don't want to, you want to put a certain time period on it, whatever, we do have a way to track those things, so, but the staff recommendation at least would be to wait until there's development on either side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there an amendment to this motion?
Your Honor, I'd like to amend it as spoken
Okay.
with option one.
Right, and a temporary
Temporary,
delay.
right.
I'll read it out again.
Correct.
To approve variance option 1, temporary delay until sidewalk is installed on both sides. All right,
Second.
there's a second by Mr. Schmidt. Discussion on the amendment. Hearing none, oh, yes, Mr. O'Brien.
I guess what I mean, obviously, this citizen, I guess we'll call him that, client, they seem to think that there needs to be a sidewalk there. I'd kind of like to know why, you know. I mean, is that what that's what they've requested, right?
No, they didn't request a
The-
sidewalk.
The-
Okay.
The applicant, yeah, they're requesting a variance.
They're requesting, they are
Yes.
requesting variance, okay. But
Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
they didn't say why?
Well, I think that comes as your, they have an application where they, they talk with staff and they fill out an application. But I think certainly the applicant's here if you'd like to talk to them as
It
well.
was in her application, the
Yeah.
reasons for not wanting it, but would you like to
Okay.
say
There's,
anything else?
there's a cost issue, there's a timing issue. I think there's a lot
Oh,
of.
so you don't, okay, no,
It's
you don't,
okay.
you're
He
fine.
gets it.
I get it.
Mr. Schmidt.
Well, knowing that the applicant was here, I did just, before we go forward, I want to make sure that, because the application had requested option 2, that a change option 1 would be acceptable and maybe even preferred.
I would absolutely prefer it, because not only would I have to pay for the sidewalk, if I personally do the sidewalk, then I have to redo a whole nother approach that it connects to, so it will cost me 40-some.
Thank
So
you.
I would love a temporary. I thought honestly, when you had to prove like fiscal, I would have to prove a real hardship, like I couldn't eat if I put it in. So I applied for the other one, because
Got it. Thank you. All right, so we need a vote on the motion as amended. Excuse me, on the amendment. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That amendment passes. And then we're back to the motion as amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, move to our informationals, correct? SSA, this is 8.1, SSA number 5 and 6, property tax levy for 2024. Mr. Silverman, would you, oh, you're good there. You have a microphone.
I do, and I'll project. Okay, so there is a memo in the council packet as well, but I'm gonna give kind of that memo gets into a lot of detail in a very short period of time, and it's kind of dense. So this is just gonna give a high overview of what's going on with SSAs 5 and 6. In 2019, the county informed us that because of a quirk in their own software that they use to set tax rates and tax bills, a significant percentage of the SSA tax was being diverted to TIF 1. And that left the SSA accounts underfunded. And keep in mind, the SSA board set their own budgets, which then sets the tax levy and what the individual property owners are taxed for the purposes of that SSA budget. This is outside, the city has an involvement, but it's up to them to set their own budgets. So our office worked with the county to ensure that the SSA accounts were as fully funded as possible by creating an accounting mechanism to reconvey money out of TIF 1 back into SSA TIF 5 and 6. The amounts that were transferred represented the shortfall that was being created by the county software. We were informed recently that the county has since moved on from that old software, has new software that will set correct rates and extend all the taxes appropriately, and this also has coincided recently with the closure of TIF 1. So there's not going to be any more TIF that will be taking the money and requiring the transfer anyway. As a result, the property owners in SSA 5 and 6 will see a significant jump in their SSA tax line on their tax bills. But it's important to understand that the assessment rate for the SSA is set by the SSA board themselves. when they establish their budgets. And while the overall tax bill may increase based on valuation and levies that are put out by all the other taxing bodies, including the SSA themselves, they'll still be paying their property taxes based on rates established by those taxing bodies and valuations established by the county. So when you're looking at individual examples within the two SSAs, you're going to see a huge jump in the SSA tax line. But that's just reflective of what the tax rate should have always have been in the first place. But if you go to the total tax bill paid, it doesn't really change. It may change because of other tax rates going up, but that's to be determined. And that's also set by the county and the individual taxing bodies themselves. Because the SSA tax rate will properly be reflected on the new next tax bills and exceed 105% of the last listed SSA tax rate, and as a purely precautionary matter, we have advised the SSA boards that they will need to hold a truth in taxation hearing. And that's per the SSA statute. It's in there on its own. The hearings for SSA 5 will be held on October 16th at 3 p.m. The hearing for SSA 6 will be held on October 18th at 3 p.m. The information we've shared here will also be shared with the SSA boards. Among the choices the SSAs will have is to stay with their current budgets, which they have done over time. They could certainly increase their budgets if they want to increase the service offerings within the SSAs. They can decrease their budgets, or they can begin the process to close out the SSAs. That is up to them. They impose this tax on themselves for services within the geography that the property owners operate within. Once their decisions have been made, this will come back to City Council for final approval and reporting to the county clerk. So we just wanted to make you aware of it. It's something we've been talking with them about for some time. I've had numerous conversations with Carol and certainly with Bob on this, but we're on the path we need to be on, and everything will be rationalized at that point.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Silverman? That's Mr. O'Brien, and then Mr. Timian.
What's been your experience with these when they go away? The SSA people drop out pretty quickly, or?
I don't, admittedly, I don't have a lot of experience
Right.
with the SSAs themselves. The other thing you gotta keep in mind is that these are specific services that the businesses want to keep their areas vibrant, clean, whatever it is that they think, even marketing purposes. We'll just see how it plays out.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Timian.
How have the individual members reacted? I imagine there's been extreme communication to prevent some sort of adverse reaction.
I have not had any direct communication yet. I do know that there have been some communications with the SSA members, letting them know that there's these things that they could expect to see a change in their tax line, and that it could seem like it's a big one, but the important message is the total taxes they will pay is the same, subject to the different tax rates changing with the different governing bodies, including themselves.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Thank you very much, Mr. Silverman. We'll move to 8.2, Enhanced Asphalt Repair Service. Mr. Schick.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. We are looking to add a piece of equipment to the Public Works toolbox to enhance our asphalt repair and maintenance services. This dovetails very nicely with last week's meeting where our city engineer, David Dreyer, talked about spending a little bit of money in repair to really keep our pavement intact so that it can last longer and we're not replacing it as soon. And so what this piece of equipment is, it's a small paver that can pave up to 7 feet in width, but typically what we're going to be doing with it is probably 3 to 4 feet in width with that. The cost is about $190,000, and we'll also need a tack coat sprayer to go along with that. This is available on the Sourcewell contract, so we would be looking to bring this back to you for approval. And through working with Bob and Carol, we have allocated or designated some ARPA funds to cover the cost of this. And so what it entails, shift the clicker. play button or?
The worn out button on the right hand side.
Oh, worn out. Okay, excellent. So what are we going to do with this piece of equipment? Why do we need it? So this is a section of street that was repaired just this spring earlier, and as you can see, when we get a little closer, we did some repair in the basically the gutter lines. And what we do with the piece of equipment that we currently have is we literally take hot asphalt off the back of the truck with shovels and wheelbarrows, place it, rake it, pack it back down as best we can. This kind of repair will last for 3 to 4 years, maybe sometimes 5 years in this kind of an instance. And so what this piece of equipment will allow us to do is we will actually saw cut 3 feet out and run a continuous ribbon that runs in the direction of the traffic flow. Why is that important? Because that then is a smooth transition for plowing snow and really keeps these things, because you can see even at the bottom of the picture there's a little bitty patch. So that's a target for our plows, and so it just keeps getting beat up on that. And so that's kind of the basic gist of what we've been doing. But this is, again, same thing. You can see we could have run right up along the side there and really done an amazing patch. The difference the tack oil makes is huge, because that allows it to adhere down to the base materials and also adhere to the pavement next to it far greater, which then results, instead of a 3 to 4 year kind of timetable, 10 to as much as 15 years that this kind of patching can actually perform. So it's a huge, huge benefit. I have more. This is just, again, same thing. This would be an area where we would just kind of saw cut out. It would be cleaner, straighter. The work that the team does right now is amazing. Again, this will last quite a while, but this is, again, more of the stuff that we're doing right now. This is an area right here where it's eroding out. And again, I'm just backing up, actually. You can see the road itself is in great shape. But here on the edge, if we don't do something, that road's going to start falling apart, and David's going to be mad at me because now he's got to get it replaced sooner. So that's what the overall intent of this does, because you can see the erosion, things that are going on here. This is a nice one on 11th Avenue. It's just blowing out along the side. If you look at the middle, it's actually in pretty decent shape. This is right across from it, and you can see there, we could, in advance, this is where the maintenance part of it comes in. It's not horrible right now, but we could certainly cut that alligator section of asphalt out and patch that all in with this type of piece of equipment. Again, like I say, this is something that we're looking to add to what we currently have. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those. I think that was my last picture. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. O'Brien.
What, you say it's, 7 foot?
Is the maximum width, yeah.
7 foot, but you only want to use 2 foot.
Well, it would depend. Like in those specific areas there, we wouldn't want to go out 7 feet if we don't have to. We don't want to compromise any of the pavement that's existing. We'd only go out to the distance we would need to and run a nice smooth parallel, cut and clean that up.
So if you were going to do an overlay, say you had a short street.
We are not intending to do overlays. This is purely a maintenance and repair kind of piece of equipment, which we have years of that kind of work to do.
Okay.
Mr. Timmy.
I know you just said we don't want to do overlay, but I have a question.
Sure.
Is another alternative use for this of repaving the pedestrian path?
Yes.
Or maybe paving the Kiwanis Trail path, which we've talked about doing, at a much cost savings?
Yes, actually, that's actually what this kind of paver is considered. It's considered, they'll call it a cart path paver.
So there are some niche alternatives that we could save money on to help this thing pay for itself.
Can I ask a question? Is that something we already do or something we contract out?
It's something that isn't done. Like
Okay.
you talked about the Kiwanis Trail.
That is
The
done.
Kiwanis Trail, I've been here for almost 23 years. It's never
Okay.
had any, other than us going down and filling potholes and doing
Thank you.
that sort of stuff.
Thank you. I have gotten a call about a trail. Yes. Mr. Schmidt.
Knowing, of course, that there's the outlay of needing to actually acquire the equipment.
Yes.
Is there a cost what is the cost savings or other benefits we get from doing it this way as opposed to the way we're currently doing it?
So, and like the very first picture, that's actually 4th Street. I believe that took us almost 3 weeks to do. I would expect that we could have done that with this piece of equipment in about half the time. So, we should be able to really you know, I would safely say we will easily double the amount of work that we're getting done currently.
And do we have all the saws or the other pieces that we are?
Yep, we have a roller, we have everything we need to do this. This is just, again, it's one more tool to add to the toolbox. We have the staffing, we can make this work.
Yeah, Mr. Macias?
Thank you. And I know in some cases, getting some of this equipment has taken like, you know, months and months.
Yes.
What kind of timeline are we looking
We're
at?
probably 6 to 8 months, so that's why I intend to bring this back to you here very quickly, so that we can have it here in time for the next construction or, you know, repair season.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Schmidt?
What's our plan or concern or how it plays into looking at the quality control? Especially as we start talking, I mean, we're putting down patches, but now we're doing bigger sections.
Mm-hmm.
And like, at what point does that cross to now we have to send out our own inspectors to make sure we're actually doing this properly? I don't know where that line
Sure.
is, but this machine feels like it could cross that line.
We'll need to get proficient with it. And, we have folks in the engineering department that have expertise in this, so we'll lean into them, we'll lean into the vendor, and you know, we will work hand in hand, obviously, with the pavement condition index, and you know, trying to really address those roads that need maintenance to extend their longevity, you know, so that they aren't having to be replaced as soon, hopefully, and be able to stretch your dollars as you're looking at doing replacement work, reconstruction work with contractors.
Thank you very much.
Thank
If there's
you.
nothing further, we'll move to the next item. Thank you. 8.3, annual outside city limits utility customers list. Mr. Lodi.
If I hit the button, will it call up that list?
It's the worn out
It's the
button.
magic button.
I don't think it's working.
I didn't load that list up, I didn't know you, I can bring it up for you right now.
Okay, thank you. So the code, Chapter 34 requires staff to report to City Council prior to October each year on those utility customers that fall outside the city limits. And the purpose for that is so that it holds those customers accountable that if they're eligible to annex, we want to prompt them to do so. So if you look at the list, once we pull it up, you'll see that some are highlighted in yellow. Those are those addresses or properties that are ineligible to annex. They are not contiguous to our borders, so they're not eligible. There are some in red that are contiguous to our borders and are eligible to annex. We just need to prompt them to do so. There's one solitary address there in white that came before you a few months ago where we were able to get this address connected to city services, but we recorded a pre-annexation agreement with them. And then there's some at the very bottom of the list, second page, that are ineligible to annex because they're covered by some IGA that the city has, whether they're in the corporate limits of another city or some are related to Quad City Airport and so forth. So that's the list. We've done our duty to report that to you. I want to draw your attention, though, that to a couple of other things. One is in the coming weeks, we intend to bring to you a change in the code in Chapter 34 because the water code language does not mirror the sewer code language with regard to these customers. So we want to bring a change to you that would allow those two sections of the code to mirror one another. It just seems appropriate. And then the second part is those that are in red on this list, we need to find a way to incentivize those customers those customers of ours to voluntarily annex. And so we're not looking for any action from you here tonight, but what we are looking for is we want to prompt some discussion about some alternatives. And one code suggests that one of the options might be to disconnect those customers from our services. And that's not something that we really want to do. We think that that would be a very poor customer service and poor, we would get really bad press from that. The other option would be to just force them to annex through some court proceeding. And then another option could be to influence them to annex by adjusting the rate that they pay. So those are the things that we've developed, those are the ideas that we've developed as staff, and we're just looking for some direction as staff on how aggressive you all want to get with these customers in order to prompt them. In order for us to grow our borders, we have to annex these people, because the ones in yellow can't be annexed until some of the ones in red are annexed.
Mr. O'Brien?
So what's option 3? Is that for like a period of time, we drop your rate 5 years or something, or?
That is something that was discussed here within the last week, where I think what you're suggesting is that we incentivize some of them with a lower rate to sign a pre-annexation agreement. That was suggested. That's something that we'd be happy to look into.
He's just asking though, like
What
for a certain
period of
amount of time, like, have you talked about it's this rate for a year or two and then this rate for another year or two? And that, I mean, have you talked about a stepwise approach? I think, am I correct, Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
We have not.
Are you suggesting that that would be a good idea, Mr. O'Brien?
Yes, I am.
Yes, all right.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Timian.
I think the
Speak
alternate
English.
approach of a higher rate is more appropriate, with the background that most of these people signed up, my understanding, under the promise that they would annex. They signed to our utilities saying, yes, when eligible, I will annex, but we never had a pre-annexation agreement signed, which was an oversight by staff 20 years ago. There's no fingers pointing. But the reality is now the only way that we can annex them now that they are continuous is through a court proceeding. So there is a little bad faith going on. So maybe the thing is we say, great, we'll continue to provide you services, but you're paying our out-of-town rate until you sign this agreement, and then we're good. That's my favorite.
Mr. Schmidt?
I don't agree regarding the status of the agreements. If we fail to get the agreements, we don't have them. And whether there were promises or whether someone was told 20 years ago, and the property's changed hands potentially since, and now we're saying to these people, well, you have to abide by a handshake agreement by someone who doesn't even live here anymore. I think we need to take steps to incentivize, including up to saying you have 2 years, you have 5 years, some way to get everyone on this list to sign some form of an agreement. I'm even open to, if, at least as a base offer, make sure everyone signs an agreement that says if this property is going to change hands, it will annex in, right? At the very least, most customers may be willing to get us in that route. But I think the onus of that is on us. And I just think as we think about how we incentivize, I think we need to think about how making that a positive of how we make someone come into the city.
So you've got 2 to 1 stepwise approach so far. That's what I'm hearing from the council. I think you might want to hear from more.
Yeah, so can I respond to that, though? So regarding the incentive, I think the incentive is appropriate for those in yellow because they can't annex right now. If we were to offer them a reduced rate, currently they pay 200% of the inside rate. The council codified that last year. For those in yellow, if we were to incentivize them, one option would be to, or could be to give them the inside rate or something in between in order to trigger them to
Sign it.
But for those in red, I don't know that there's, something that's going to move the needle for them.
Yes, Mr. Macias?
Thank you. But you've been in this situation before, right, with people in the red? Or have?
We did tackle this list a year or so ago, just started sending letters, making calls, and we were able to secure 8 petitions. And so within the last year or so, we've annexed 8 of them. But these in red are, some of them very fervently not willing to annex.
Okay. So you really don't have there's no good experience or something that has really worked with them?
No, that's why we're here.
Mr. Timmy?
To be clear, I do think the yellow specifically, sign the agreement, you're getting city rates. Just that makes everyone happier. You're one of us. The red ones, in lieu of a court proceeding, which none of us really want to go through, I'm not the one in the courtroom, but there has to be some incentive. And if that includes discounted rates, if it saves everyone time and money, why not? But if not, if they're going to play hardball, then I guess we have no option but to follow suit, in my opinion.
Mr. Schmidt?
Well, and charting through that continued path, and I agree, on the yellow ones especially, I mean, by all means, let's get the incentive, they have the least risk, I suppose, if we take a look at it that way. I think another way to perhaps apply a more aggressive approach is also to put that on a clock, right? Say, you've got 5 years to get into agreement, get into here, or we're gonna blow your rate up. And, I mean, something that gives a timer that sets that to a realistic standpoint. I mean, that's a long time, but.
So you've mentioned the time frame, but also you've mentioned if it changes hands. I mean, if you're gonna wait 5 years, then you need to make sure that change of hands triggers something too.
Oh, in the agreement, absolutely.
Ms. Castro?
I agree with the time frame. I think that we give them, I may be thinking that 5 might be a little bit too long, but maybe something like 3. I think that still gives them plenty of time to get their stuff together and get it up there. But I do like having a time frame on them for them.
Is that enough feedback?
I think so.
Okay, thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much.
you.
Can you stay up there for 8.4? Green Moline Special Event Checklist. Mr. Lodi.
So this initiative is coming out of the mayor's environmental working group, and really this is your honor's initiative. But I'm happy to report. What this is an incentive for events, and we're starting small. You know, when we started brainstorming and thinking of ideas, we were thinking of trying to lure businesses to become more environmentally friendly, and then they could get the green Moline logo on their window, and so we thought, well, maybe that's a little bit above our pay grade, so we decided to scale back a little bit to start. So this is a result of Andy Parr, who is working in this working group, also meeting with the Special Events Committee and trying to sell them on this idea. This checklist would be initiated and policed by our code enforcement department and the environmental health specialist, Alex Jones, largely. And then
Post-event,
Post-
right? Because
yeah.
we have to have the evidence that the incentives are given afterwards, so we can know that people have actually done what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
If you could scroll so that the incentives show the bottom.
Yeah, so there would be 3 levels of incentives. One could be that the highest level of incentive would be that they would get reimbursement for some fees related to permits and insurance. A middle level would be to reimburse just the permit fee and also get the designation.
I want to just correct one thing.
Okay,
You
sure.
might have missed it in the emails. It's reimbursements on the permit fee, but reimbursements on the recycling containers, right? Rather than the
Yes.
insurance piece. And to be clear, the cost ramifications still need to be talked through with Ms. Barnes in finance, but we wanted the group to bring this forward because it's been sitting with us for a little while after we've talked to like the folks at Hive who helped us with the 150 and Visit Quad Cities weighed in on some of these ideas because they deal with big events all the time. So it's really informational.
Yeah, the idea is that this initiative, it prompts the event organizers to think about sustainadability. It tells the attendees that this is a sustainable event, and then lastly, it advances your guys' goal of pursuit of environmental best practices.
And Mr. O'Brien is on that working group with us, if
Yes,
you
indeed.
didn't know that. So I think I saw a hand over here. Is that Ms. Castro?
Oh, I didn't raise it, but I do have questions when
Yes,
we're ready.
please, go ahead with questions.
Some of these, I mean, are we going to ask for proof that some of these items are like being met, like 25% or more of the food cost is local or organic? I mean, are we asking for something
Yeah, they can
that
send
shows
receipts.
or?
Yeah, I think at the bottom, we ask for receipts. We can also modify the language here, but can you keep going further?
Yeah, okay, I didn't read that little small
Oh,
part
yeah,
down
that
there.
little, no,
It's that
there it
last
is,
sentence.
there it is. Participants will provide finance staff with invoices for recycling containers, as well as photographic evidence of all other fulfilled checklist items. That makes sense?
Yeah, I missed that small piece
That's the
down there.
only way we can do it, because we don't want to overtax staff time by being at weekend events, right? But we need to prove it, and that's why the incentive payback comes after the event. So, yes, Mr. Macias?
Thank you. So for special events now, and we have somebody who will be working with food trucks and whatnot, sometimes it might depend on what those vendors are using. Yeah, how do we work with it? Is that something they communicate with them, or do we work in partnership with them?
Yeah, in my mind, that would be the host of the food truck's responsibility to try and get their vendors to comply.
Well, that's our like ordinance language, Tony, right? The compliance language. This is a voluntary program. This is, if you want to make an impact on reducing plastic, which we know is the biggest pollutant in the Mississippi River, which we get our drinking water from, right? Here are some ideas, here are some things. And we tried to find the things that would matter to vendors to get money off, right? And leave some flexibility. So they're not feeling like, oh my God, I can't do all of these checklist items. I can do these though, right? Sorry, Tony, am I taking over here?
It's fine.
Go ahead, Mr. Schmidt, and then Mr. O'Brien.
I said, start by asking what's the feasibility or reasonability to expect that the Moline event would adhere? Because in my estimation, it's the food and food service ones I think are the biggest red flags. So a lot of the others are good steps and fairly simple, but I just worry about whether it is practical or cost effective or even reasonable to try and do that. Because if we are starting to introduce some of these things, right, if you're requiring recyclable, packaging, fine, it's not styrofoam, it's a paper plate, but once you put the food on the paper plate, it's not recyclable anymore. So we're kind of self-defeating our purpose in that category. And I worry that we're either driving up costs by going from a disposable plastic cup to a reusable plastic cup, or we are driving up the, lost my train of thought. And I'm wondering if there are any of these that are gonna run afoul of health and food safety concerns. I mean, I'm all good with large bulk packaging on things, but what if a condiment has to be refrigerated?
So we did get feedback from Alex, our food and health and safety inspector, right? So she's seen all this and weighed in on those items. And that's why I think we moved away. That's why it's voluntary. If you can do it, if it makes sense for your event, then that's fine. And the biggest thing we really wanted to do was set up the recyclable canisters right next to our trash canisters, because there's so much mixing of it. It'll still get commingled to some degree. We know that happens, but we have to try. That's where that thinking came from. But yes, we ran it by Alex for sure. Mr. O'Brien.
You have to start somewhere. I mean, you definitely have. I think in our committee, we have the belief that people want to behave well when it comes to the environment. We know this much about not a lot of other things Americans want to do, but they do want to protect the environment. So with that in mind, want to decrease plastic, and this is, it's not, I think we can all agree, it's not a perfect, it's not all filled out yet, but it is a start. And when people want to do the right thing, we want to be able to let them do the right thing and encourage that behavior.
Thank you, Mr.
Well
O'Brien. Mr. Timian?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have two items. One is, I think, an alternative that could deal with the soiled paper would be to also have a compost bin, which we might have to partner with our own farm that we help put grass clippings on. But I think that I've seen that done at a corporate office. Requires a little signage and explanation, but it is a good, all food can go in there, plus your paper products that have food products on them. Second, I personally don't think that we should be pushing organic Because if we're importing a non-pesticide fruit from Argentina with fossil fuels transporting it, there is it's self-defeating, but secondarily, I think a clear definition of what local means. How local? Is Chicago local? Is
Okay.
Florida local? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll definitely take another crack at it and also address the economic concerns, especially alongside Ms. Barnes now that we've introduced the idea to you all. Do you think anything else, Tony, Mr. O'Brien? Anyone else?
I can say one more thing, and that is sometime in the next couple of months, the group is also working on a energy efficiency and conservation strategy. We were the recipient of a grant from the Department of Energy, and one of the requirements of that grant is that we are required to develop an energy efficiency and conservation strategy. So we've been working toward that, and we haven't gotten there yet, but at some point in the next month or so, we'll be discussing that also.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
I did just want to add, and I know I was negative on the food components of this, but I am supportive, and I take your point.
Yeah, that's worried.
No, I think pushing it forward, and there, a lot of these, I mean, from waist on down, I think it's all
Okay.
right on. It was only the small things.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, let's move to our regular council meeting. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do you have an invocation, Mr. Castro? No. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderperson Murphy. Present. Macias.
Present.
Razak. Timian.
Present.
Finch.
Present.
O'Brien.
Present.
Castro.
Present.
Schmidt.
Present.
No, this is, sorry.
Yeah, we gotta do that reading,
Yeah.
like the all-inclusive.
Your Honor, I request the approval of Committee of the Whole, Council, and Executive Session Minutes of September 12th, 2023, and appointments made during Committee of the Whole on September 26th, 2023, and consent agenda items 14.1 through 14.6 inclusive.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Schmidt, seconded by Castro. Roll call, please.
This is, so, sorry. Yeah, this is right, this one. Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
All right.
So 7 ayes, no nays.
Yep.
That motion carries.
Yep.
Non-consent agenda, second reading ordinances. Item 16.1, an ordinance amending Chapter 22, offenses miscellaneous, Article 1, Division 1, Section 22-1105, tobacco products, tobacco accessories, smoking herbs, and alternative nicotine products of the City of Moline Code of Ordinances regarding tobacco dealers' licenses.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson Finch, seconded by Alderperson Macias. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, that motion carries. Item 16.2, a zoning text amendment ordinance amending Chapter 35, zoning and land development of the Moline Code of Ordinances regarding minimum off-street parking and traffic circulation standards for in-vehicle sales and service uses.
Motion to approve 16.2.
Second.
Motion by Timian, seconded by Murphy. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, that motion carries. Item 16.3, an ordinance amending Chapter 8, Buildings and Other Construction and Building Services of the Moline Code of Ordinances by repealing Article 7, Miscellaneous, Division 2, Rental Housing Inspection Program in its entirety and enacting in lieu thereof One new Article 7, miscellaneous Division 2, rental housing inspection program, dealing with the same subject matter.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion by Alderperson O'Brien, seconded by Timian. Discussion. Mr. Schmidt.
I had a question for Mr. Daly.
Yes, please come to the microphone.
He thought he was going to sit the whole night.
So one of I love this program. I think it's going to do a lot of great things. It's going to give us the possibility and the power to make a lot of positive changes. One question that was brought kind of to my attention this week was looking at how our rate compares to a lot of the neighboring cities, and how it compares. And it is higher, but my concern when I looked at that was, okay, but are they paying for the program in its entirety from fees? And do you know if that's something that we could say about our neighbors, or do we think it's likely that those fees are not covering the cost of the program?
Well, I can use Davenport for an example, that their fiscal year 2023 budget, they have $952,409 coming from their general fund to support their rental inspection program. They have, let's see here, and also they have a trust fund where they're getting $285,000 of it also from. So, and they actually are only bringing in, 23, they're only bringing in about $345,000. So it shows how much their program costs, and again, they're supporting it through their tax payment numbers.
Thank you.
Well, and we definitely, I think, want this to be a self-sustaining program that's going to pay for itself and operate the best for our city. So thank you.
Yes, Mr. O'Brien.
I think the higher fee encourages good actors in this program. I mean, those are the people we want to have rental housing. I know I'm probably using a term you're not allowed to say, but we want people that want to keep housing at a decent level. And we've had some issues with absentee landlords, I probably don't have to tell you that don't really care about the neighborhoods. And I think when you charge a little higher fee, then you get people's attention and they'll start to comply, I believe.
And something that I personally believe in, I believe that for this money that both sides are getting a service. The owners of these properties are having our staff go out and inspect them to make sure that they're in good condition. Some of these owners are absentee owners, and they're trusting a management firm that they believe is doing a good job that may not be. So they're getting that on their end, okay, as an independent resource. And of course, the tenants, they are getting a service because they have an advocate to come to whenever the owners or the managers aren't doing their job, that they have somebody that can stand up for them. So I think it's a win-win for both sides.
Thank you. Ms. Castro, then Ms. Finch.
No, I was just going to say that I really thank you for all the work that you've put into it. I think it's a great idea. As Mr. O'Brien mentioned, I think it's going to just encourage landlords to take better care of their properties and make the neighborhoods look better and give people pride in where they live. So I think it's a really great program.
Ms. Finch.
I have a question. So the facilities that are excluded, could we also exclude like Section 8 housing? Because in order to obtain a voucher, the state has to come in and do their own inspection, and their inspection is a little more rigorous than ours.
And actually, I kind of look at it the other way. As far as their housing quality survey inspection, that in a lot of ways it isn't as rigorous as ours, as far as like checking outlets for wiring and checking the wiring of panels and such. Through that, I didn't really find that much. Also, I think we'll find that we want to make sure that we inspect it, because a good property, okay, one that's in great condition, that it's going to be considered an A, and it's going to get re-inspected every 4 years. And by one that has some minor issues, it'd be a B, it gets re-inspected in 2, and of course the ones that are having issues will be inspecting every year. We need to go out there and look at the property to kind of get that gauge. And that's the reason why I think it's still important that we go out to all properties.
I understand your question, Alderperson Finch. I would say, also Section 8 housing can sometimes be some of our most vulnerable population, and I wouldn't want to not have another layer, especially given the complaints I've gotten from folks, you know, either dealing with perceived or real issues. I think it's good for us to have that other layer. I would also just add personally, you'll probably hear from folks that were at the affordable housing session today with Project Now and a bunch of other people. I mean, I was so pleased to see on their list of ideas, because they're very, very intent on municipalities and elected officials using policy to help people move out of poverty, right? And to have positive, safe living conditions. And the last bullet point for some of the ideas for all of us was increase rental housing inspections. So I was very pleased to see we're in alignment with where the professionals see this needs to go. And on top of that, I do believe that we have secondary support resources ready to go through CED and KJ Whitley's area when it comes to, should a landlord not want to improve their place, right, and not comply and stop wanting to have that place of business, really is what it is, right? And then people might be out of a place to live. We do have resources, that secondary help to make sure people can get housed. And I think that's an extremely important part and a positive piece of where Moline has been and where we continue to go. Otherwise, this would be kind of scary, knowing there'll be some people who don't want to comply and want to get out of the business altogether. Ms. Murphy and then Mr. Timmy.
I was very happy to see this because I think sometimes Moline might need to set the standard and let the rest follow us. I mean, there's nothing wrong with holding, you know, our programs to a higher standard than the rest of our customers or our fellow neighboring cities. So I'm happy.
Thank you. Mr. Timmy.
To quote Reverend Ford today, he said, water flows downhill, right? It fills all spaces. If we can lead, it should spread to the neighboring communities. I want to commend you for how, frankly, quickly you did this. This was a monumental task, and it happened quickly. I had a question, and I forgot the second, so let me start with the one that I remember, is Airbnbs. I believe they're excluded due to being short-term rentals, but they need to be inspected as well. Do we have any plan for this, maybe in a separate program?
Yeah, right now, it is separated out of here, and there are discussions.
Okay, so.
You know, it's kind of like hotels. It still is a property maintenance issue, so in other words, if there's a bad character and we find out about it, they don't get off it.
Right. And I think that was actually my point, was the consequence of this program might be bad landlords no longer want to play in this playground. And that's okay, because then those houses become available to young families who might want to purchase them. So if we can weed out bad actors and raise the neighborhoods to higher standards, which lowers crime, then everyone wins out of this.
Thank you so much. There's nothing further. Roll call, please.
Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, that motion carries. Non-consent agenda resolutions. A resolution declaring the property at 1316 26th Street and 1330 26th Street, Moline, as surplus, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to an agreement for sale of real estate and do all things necessary to convey the city-owned property at 1316 26th Street and 1330 26th Street, Moline, to Landeros and Sons Construction, Inc.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson Timian, second by Alderperson Finch. Yeah, it's in his ward, that's why he's excited.
My neighborhood.
I do, okay, so discussion. I wanted you to know that I moved this from consent. It passed unanimously in our CAL last time, but I moved it to non-consent because I had gotten an email from Janelle Chouanier from MCDC, who just wanted us to know that in her experience with this particular construction company, there's been some significant delays on a house that they're doing for MCDC. I did ask for clarification from Amy and Brad on the work that this group has done for the city, and it's been really good work. And there's a variety of reasons why some things get delayed, as you know, supply chain delays and things like that. So just know that I just wanted to, effort to be transparent. It's that MCDC had reached out just to say that everyone's working well together. Everything's fine, but I wanted you to know that. Yes, Mr. Timian.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm so happy about this. It's really close to my house. I played there as a kid. So I know this property well. I know the neighborhood well. I spoke with Ms. Whitley this morning about an idea, because this is the church itself is being converted to a single-family residence. It's a very large church. Originally, the idea of a duplex or more was floated, but it does not meet zoning. And this is my favorite topic. But I would like, and I know she's spoken to the developer about this already. If the developer were to pursue a duplex or row housing, which this building could accommodate, it would require a variance from the Plan Commission, which would deny it because that's how the code's written. But the council could overrule it if decided. So I'm kind of looking for a consensus if this is something the council is interested in exploring, making the church a duplex or triplex, instead of a single-family residence, because the developer is interested if that's an option.
I think, actually, Mr. Sylvan, you'll have to weigh in here because we have to deal with the motion on the floor. Any further ideas need to be handled in a different context.
Yeah, that would be phase two. Yeah, phase one is getting the conveyance down, and that's where we're at.
With that, then I can ask individually.
Your comments are taken on the floor.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So in case you didn't hear that, he'll ask you all individually and check in on that. So, anything further on this item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, that motion carries. Item 17.2, a resolution granting a variance to Chapter 28, Streets and Sidewalks of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 28-3200A, and Chapter 35, Zoning and Land Development of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 35-4218, to permanently waive the construction of sidewalk along 39th Street for the subject property located at 3715 39th Street, Moline, and accept payment in lieu of construction for the amount of $4,180 to be deposited into the Sidewalk Improvement Fund.
Pause. Everybody chill. Right, so she read it as she needed to read it, but this is from our cow, correct?
Yes,
Right, so it needs to be amended just as,
yes.
or does she need to strike that and reread as amended?
Well, no, because this is its own motion,
Correct.
so.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, so you have to amend it the same exact way you amended it before.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Schmidt, question, point of clarity, order, what?
I have a question that's going to be out of order without a motion, isn't it?
So,
Well.
okay, we can do a motion in a second and then be able to talk about it. That's easy
Well, but if
enough.
it's, go ahead, go.
I'd like a motion to suspend the rules to allow discussion of this item without a motion.
Is there a second for that? Second by Ms. Finch. All in, I get to
Go.
say all in favor, right?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we've suspended the rules to talk. Mr. Schmidt.
Is there a timing concern that brings this before? Because I would prefer to table the item to allow it to come back to us written with the amendments, unless there's a timing reason.
Mr. Matthias or Mr. Dryer?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't know why it was on
Yeah,
already tonight
usually
anyway.
we have a note saying for timing reasons.
I'll be very flat, so I'm not sure why it was already on your agenda.
All right, I suggest you make those motions that table it till next.
You're gonna
You have
continue
something,
at that
Mr.
table.
Vitas?
I think in fairness to the property owner, the council needs to know that they waited for months on end to get a response from the city. And in fairness to his construction timeline, I think we should pursue approval this evening, and that's the reason why it was presented here. Otherwise, he's going to be delayed even further, and he's trying to finish construction of his single-family home, which may be one of the only permits issued for a single-family home in the city this year. And we'd like to see the project brought to
Okay.
completion, in fairness to the applicant.
So then,
Why
Mr.
ask the question?
Silverman, is your suggestion to put the motion on the floor and then amend it using the language of as amended in the Cal meeting?
Yeah, I think that would be the easiest approach,
Is
and
that
everyone will
clear?
understand what that is.
Okay.
I think you should reference the cow agenda item as amended.
Which number was that, please? It's 7.4.
7, yep.
Okay. Mr. Schmidt?
So, Mr. Silverman, the correct motion would be to approve your cow item, and I number it
7.4.
7.4.
Yes.
If I were to,
Well, okay, so, this is a little bit of an odd thing. So you've approved to move it out of cow to make it an agenda item that you're gonna formally adopt now?
yes.
Yes. So again, this is its own motion, you've already dealt with it, but just cross-reference to the cow item is 7.4.
Well, we've not made a motion.
Yeah,
No,
whereas
I know, I
we,
understand,
Yeah.
I understand.
So what would be the motion I would need to make? Simply to, could you speak the words I should say? And I would say-
You want a motion to approve 17.2 consistent with the amended version of 7.4 on the committee of the whole agenda.
So moved. Wow. Second.
all right. That was motion by Schmidt, seconded by Timian. Everyone understands this is a motion, this is 17.2, a motion to approve 17.2 consistent with the amended item 7.4 on the Cal
Yes,
agenda.
yes.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch. O'Brien.
Aye.
All right, 7 ayes, no nays, that motion carries. Non-consent agenda, first reading ordinances. Item 18.1, an ordinance amending Chapter 35 zoning and land development of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Article 1, general provisions and administration, Division 2, word usage, abbreviations, and definitions, Section 35-1203, definitions, Article 3, zoning, Division 4, land use regulations, Section 35-3401, regulation of allowed uses, Table 35-3401.1, permitted land uses, Section 35-3408, principal commercial land uses, Section 35-3414, accessory commercial land uses, regarding zoning text amendments concerning food trucks or motorized vendors. Motorized food vendors, sorry.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
It's actually advanced to second reading. huh?
Motion to advance to second reading.
Thank you. Ms. Castro, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Finch. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
7 ayes, no, I know.
That was
Yeah, so 7 ayes, no nays. Motion advanced to second reading carries. Okay, item number 18.2, an ordinance amending Chapter 15, garbage and trash of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 15-2200, fee for residential refuse, collection by repealing said section in its entirety and enacting in lieu thereof of one new section, 15-2200, dealing with the same subject matter.
Motion to advance to second reading?
Second.
Motion by Timian, seconded by Finch. Discussion. Mr. Schmidt.
I just wanted to say that as we move forward on these fee increases tonight, I'm glad we are taking the moves necessary to keep our enterprise funds functional. That's a responsibility that has not always been carried through by past councils. And even though we're gonna make some fairly significant jumps, percentage-wise in some of these, it's gonna set us on that path to stability and ensuring that we don't face crumbling infrastructure that's gonna cause problems down the road.
Thank you. Anyone else? If there's nothing further, roll call, please.
Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion advanced to second reading carries. Item 18.3, an ordinance amending Chapter 34, Water and Sewers of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 34-4400 in general by repealing said sections in their entirety and enacting in lieu thereof one new section, 34-4400, dealing with the same subject matter.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Schmidt, second by Finch. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion advanced to second reading carries. Number 18.4, an ordinance amending Chapter 34, Water and Sewers of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 34-3200, Sewerage Rate System by repealing said section in its entirety and enacting in lieu thereof one new section, 34-3200, dealing with the same subject matter.
Motion to advance to second reading.
Second.
Motion by Timian, seconded by Finch. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Motion, 7 ayes, no nays, motion to advance to second reading carries, and that is all I have this evening, Your Honor.
All right. Just looking for my list. Okay, we move to miscellaneous business. I am pleased to say, as usual, there's a lot going on in Moline, whether it's opportunities for residents, whether it's meetings. My last week was full of several meetings I wanted to share with you, just so you're aware of what I've been up to and what conversations are out there. Last Thursday, I had the opportunity to speak directly with our MKSK consultants, but Riverfront, I wanted you to know that Alderperson Timian and Macias are the Alder people on the task force, yes, that will meet in October, along with other people invested in riverfront development from the community, and that is because their wards are in the riverfront area. So please make sure you speak to them if you have ideas you want shared with that task force. I also had the opportunity with Mr. Matthias and Alex Elias from Renew Moline, and I thank you so much for your work in prepping several proposals. MICD is the Mayor's Institute for City Design, and it's something I've been able to connect with because of the opportunities I've had through U.S. Conference of Mayors. I am going in November to the Small City Conference, and these professionals from the University of Southern Florida, did I get that right? Southern Florida? South Florida.
Southwest.
In Tampa. They did a site visit on Friday, and so we spent the better part of 2 hours, I think, with them, sharing 3 ideas for places for redevelopment. One was our mall area, which we've had significant discussions. Mr. Vitas has a firm hand on our Mesa Ridge folks down there because this is an area of major concern for folks. So the whole idea is for these folks at MICD to pick one of our 3 projects and give us ideas, kind of like ULI did back in 2021 for the riverfront. So that was place number 1. Place number 2 was our Eastgate TIF to see what they might come up with. And then, of course, we mentioned the riverfront because there could be something interesting they can propose that we can share with MKSK. And so I just wanted you to know those were the projects that we talked about, and that's there'll be more information coming back in November. But my job will be to go present on whichever project they choose, and then area experts will weigh in on the project, if that makes sense. I also was able to meet with representatives from the Farm Bureau. I had a connection there from the training I went to in August. As some of you may know or recall, the Spiegel building has a building as ecosystem idea for it now that we've spent money on feasibility studies, et cetera, for what can go in that space. And so I gathered ideas with Alex Elias from professionals from the Rock Island County Farm Bureau, and then the State Farm Bureau. Their economic development person was at the table and had a lot of good ideas and feedback because some of any ideas around urban farming can come with inherent risk. And so Alice will be talking with you on what we learned from them. But it was really nice because we learned from the Farm Bureau that they are looking to move beyond the traditional rural farming focus that they've had and see what can be done in urban spaces. And so we'll see where that information takes us. Tomorrow, I am hosting or convening a group of city administrators, mayors, those elected officials to talk about the development environment in Illinois right now, especially given our border community status. I think we've talked about, I mentioned the difficulty of this in getting projects to pencil at this point in time to some of you, if not all of you, in some of our strategy sessions. And it's just time that we all sit together. There was the Illinois
Development Finance
Finance Authority came last week, and some of us were not available to go, but I did get the notes to bring to that, so I will be having that on hand early in the morning. But in any case, I wanted you to know that we're trying to have a discussion about strategies for us to be successful given whatever our environment is here in Illinois. And we just really need to talk as community leaders about what's happening in our different cities along in the Quad Cities and maybe learn from one another. So that's all that is for like an hour tomorrow morning. So thank you again, Mr. Mathias, for helping with that and helping lead that. And then I will let all of you all talk about the affordable housing session we went to this morning. But I do want to say I was extremely proud of both the staff and elected officials from Moline and our partner, Janelle Chouanier from MCDC. We by far had the most representation of any municipality in the area. And that was just really encouraging to see because we've talked as a council about the priority we've placed on roads and housing for our updated strategic plan, which is coming to us in October for adoption. But it just was so wonderful that people are they're walking the talk, both on this from the staff level and the elected leadership. So we'll keep bringing back those ideas that this regional group of people are talking about. Ms. Murphy.
I thought it was very interesting today. Some of the ideas that came forth, I think that we can use in Moline going forward. And I think the most interesting thing was the disparity in the cost of how much rent is that is not subsidized or whatever, and how unaffordable it really is. So I think that was an eye-opener to me.
Mr. Macias.
No, thank you. Yeah, I did want to give a quick update. I wasn't at the event. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. But last year, I did a presentation for some of those who were in the previous council and those who are no longer here about a community ID program. I did it alongside QC Interfaith. And so since then, one of the recommendations from some of the previous council members was to maybe talk to Rock Island County and the other counties because the idea was QC Interfaith would work with Scott County to try and get it going, but my own personal Illinois heart told me we need to do something on this side in case that gets going. So since November and December of last year, I've been in contact with both. I've had meetings with representatives of both counties. They've talked to their people, and finally we got a meeting for what was called an update just a couple weeks ago. And just the nature of the way it was presented as an update as opposed to come talk to us or do a presentation, was interesting in my opinion. But that said, it was a blessing because both counties, they had the reasons why they didn't want to do it. Frankly, it seemed like the appetite's not there. And since then, I've also talked to the architect of the City Key in Chicago. So I have all the documents, everything that's in it, and a lot of guidance of how it got put together. And really, as a city, as a municipality, we can be a lot more nimble when implementing such a project. So that said, there is now the next step is to basically bring it back here and work with the rest of the council and the mayor so that we can get something going in the city. So those who heard and saw the presentation last year, there will be another follow-up, so I'll be connecting with all of you in the near future.
Thank you,
That's it.
Mr. Macias. Mr. Timian.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciated the time we all spent this morning talking about affordable housing. It's always best to get ideas from other people. Something I shared with the group this morning is that I was saddened and elated when those houses burned down on 13th Street. Saddened because, I was glad no one was in there. No one lived in there, no one was harmed. It was great. I was saddened because 24 hours before they burned down, we had two houses that could put two families. And 24 hours afterwards, we now have two houses, not only where families can't live, but also where we cannot build houses again. Our zoning code prohibits us from building houses where there once stood houses 24 hours before. And there's a lot of reasons. These are historic homes, they're smaller lots, they didn't adhere to our current setback requirements and whatnot. But we have the ability to fix that as a council and as a plan commission. It takes work, it takes desire to do so, but we can fix this problem. But we have probably 35 to 40 lots in the city where there once stood houses where we cannot build houses again. And if we want to be a part of the solution for the housing crisis, we have the privilege of being a part of that solution. But it will take time. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Finch?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Mr. O'Brien?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Mr. Schmidt?
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right. Staff?
My turn.
Yes, your turn.
I happen to live next door to the two houses that burned to the ground, for the record. And both stood vacant, one for over 7 years, according to a neighbor who lives directly across the street from it. It was owned by a very large property management company, which I won't mention. And the other house that was impacted directly will likely be condemned or need to be condemned. I'm going to go on the record and say that. The chimney on that property actually collapsed over the last 24 hours on the neighboring property. So it's highly unlikely that it's salvageable. And you're correct, it's a postage stamp lot with zero lot line development, and that's the reason why it doesn't meet the code. But nobody was injured, but they have both been vacant the entire time I've lived on 13th Street. We will be reaching out, all members of council and the mayor, setting up meetings with myself and Carol. You'll be hearing from Macy, and I would ask you to please find time to meet with us for, maybe half an hour to an hour to talk about what we discussed last week with respect to the major capital projects that are not funded and will be partially funded now based on some of the adjustments council has made. But we do need to prioritize that and go through those, and that's really a council prioritization. We can have recommendations for you, but it will ultimately be your choice as we go into the budget hearings in October. We'd like to be prepared for your benefits. I just wanted to go on record as well and let you know that the mayor received a letter dated September 21st from State Representative Greg Johnson, and it's a congratulatory letter. I hope you saw this. Based on the look on your face. It actually came from Al Peoples, who works for Greg Johnson, but there was a $450,000 grant to the city of Moline for the development and design of a solar project, which, as you know, is one of our major strategic goals, environmental goals, and that it was included in a new state budget at the end of the spring 23 session. Now going forward, so that everybody understands how this works. This is great, but now let's see the money. That's the first thing I always say, show me the money. It's great to do these things, but they will have to issue bonds, not only for this project, but any DCEO projects that come out using this mechanism. So it's there, it's an earmark. Now we wait to see that it gets approved through a funding mechanism being bonds. So I did speak with Matt Hughes, our lobbyist, as well about it this morning, just to make sure, and that is the case. So anyhow, this is good news. At least it's there as a place mark. Let's see what else. You've mentioned MKSK actually launching last week. I will say I was quite impressed at the end of the day after they had their stakeholder meetings with a large number of people already from the community, how adept they were at picking up on that discussion and basically congealing that discussion with some very vibrant points about where this city is at, where this city thinks it's going. They picked up very quickly, and if you weren't there, you'll get your chance to speak with them. But they're really doing a great job, even though it was only 1 weekend. And again, I want to thank Chris and Alex and all the others, for taking the lead to get that thing launched and up and running. Plus, I got to ride on a channel cap. I can't complain. It was fun. And that's all I have for the day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Please, no, oh, that was a no? I guess I have one other update when it comes to state budgets. So in last year's budget, it was for '22. Then Representative Halpin had gotten money for a higher education study up here. And if you recall, several years ago, there was quite a kerfuffle around WIU, U of I, and all of those things. And I've been able to have some really wonderful discussions with the people at the table in that, and also leave the discussions where they needed to be among the educational institutions. And one of my recommendations was that you can't do anything if you don't have data. You need to show that. And so Halpin did get that money. The state, I have gotten the initial outreach from the company doing the research, so I'll be responding to a survey and work with staff if I need to on that. And then I did attend a wonderful dinner last night here in our Access Hotel. It was a private event for folks from the community, including Western, including folks from the chamber, and from John Deere, et cetera, and the chancellors and head of the University of Illinois system. So they're doing some wonderful things in tandem. They're having good conversations about about what kind of cooperative relationships they can have. And I just wanted you to know that was another of the things that was occurring and sort of a follow-up from years ago. But things look like they're headed in a very nice direction. So that's that. And with that, we will move to any other public comment. Nope.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, now I get it. Is there executive session?
Your Honor, I make a motion that the council convene an executive session for the purpose of discussion of collective negotiating matters -5 ILCS 120/2C2, pending probable or imminent litigation -5 ILCS 120/2C11.
Second?
All right, motion by Murphy, seconded by Timian. Wait. Nope, roll call, please.
Alderperson Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
All right, we're moving to executive